Yo, yo, yo.
Hello, my friend.
What up? Oh my gosh. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another week of Case Files with Kat.
And Ashley.
We should just say Ashley. No, I'm just we do have a voicemail, I'm assuming.
I was actually just like, shit. I'm so unprepared again.
I bet there is. And
Sarah just texted. I forgot my voicemail. I'm doing it now.
Okay, so we're gonna put that at the end of the episode. So be sure to stick around for that because it is good. I already know what she's gonna talk about, and I haven't talked to you about it.
Getting spoilers.
Well, I was there.
Oh.
I was there.
You guys hear this? I'm just left out of everything.
Well, I didn't want to spoil it for you. Anyway,
yes,
but
I will check it at the end of the episode because she currently says that she's leaving it right now.
Okay, well, she is so late. Okay, but what are you drinking?
Whatever your wonderful husband made me because you tried to kill me by tricking me.
I didn't.
And having me take a sip of an IPA.
I didn't.
I thought I was gonna fucking die.
She goes, oh. She was so extra.
It was so bad, guys. So bad.
It's from your favorite drama. Go to theater class. Okay.
Hey, what are you drinking? What do you got? You got cool can art.
I have amazing can art.
I mean, it's always amazing, but look at that.
This is like, it's so cool. So this is a new one. So it is also from Shiner. And you know how I've had the Brewhouse Brew and the Desert Mirage? Well, this is their Twin Dream Double IPA. If you are in Texas, get this. I haven't taken a sip yet, but I already know it's going to be delicious. So yay for Shiner.
Woo.
Oh, that's good. That is a double India Pale Ale brewed with cactus water, 9.5%. So if I make it through this can by the end of the episode,
we'll be fine.
I'm going to be lit. No, I'm just kidding.
Sarah says that she just got done leaving her Sarah.
Okay, so we'll do that at the end because we're going to need a laugh.
Okay.
I promise you. Okay. So my question of the week was predictive text, and I am sort of moving us through the beginning of our episode because I got shit to say, and I know that we're going to need all the time. Okay, so it was a predictive text. Mm-hmm. I am blank, your name, which of blank? Mm-hmm. Fear me because blank. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's yours?
Mm-hmm. Mine is I am Ashley. Mm-hmm. Which of you and your family?
Which of you and your family? Oh
fear me because I don't want you to be a good person. My new phone is already with the times. It's already feeling my vibe. So it's already got me down.
She's already got you, boo. She's got you.
She already knows what's up.
She knows what's up. Okay,
we had some good answers.
Mine, oh really? Oh good, I'm glad. Finally. All right, so I'm like, my questions of the week never do well. Okay, so mine was, I am Kat. Which of the people fear me because I have a bad attitude?
Oh, wow.
Which, full disclosure, was totally true when I did this on Sunday. Like, it absolutely was true. I was like, oh, damn, it reads me. My phone reads me.
I did this like the day you posted it, and I was like, oh, I have to screenshot that because there's nothing as good as that. Nothing else will be as good.
You felt seen. I felt seen. Yes. I think my phone felt my vibe because I was like in the worst mood. Sorry, Jason. Okay. So this is a story. I just have to get into it. Seriously.
Okay.
Seriously.
Okay.
I gotta.
Go. Go. I'm ready.
It's hefty.
Me and Kevin are like prepared.
I put Kevin at your spot because you're gonna need him. Okay, so this is a story that I once again got. There's a straw. There's a straw.
I know, but I was trying to make the ice not jiggle too. Like the ice is jiggling. Okay, I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay.
Hear the ice
Serious
jiggling,
mode. Go.
jiggle, jiggle, jiggle.
It's your
Okay.
husband's fault. He gave it to me.
I know.
As if
I'm
he
like,
doesn't.
put
He's
it
the
in
producer.
plastic.
He's gonna be the one that has to edit it out. So
He's a fucking wizard.
he is a wizard.
Okay. So, as I was saying, this is a story that I got once again from my Audible list. And I just went through, and like I told you last time, I was like, true crime. Oh, that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. I didn't really do too much research into if they were actually good or not. And I have not been disappointed. So this once again comes from the author Greg Olson, who also wrote Abandoned Prayers about the Amish serial killer.
Oh.
So same author. This dude did not disappoint. I was like 100% riveted. The performance of the person reading it could not. I actually went in and looked for another book that she narrated because I was like, what else has she done? Because I'm going to listen to her.
That's my problem with audiobooks is I usually hate the person narrating, so I can't get through it.
Even Jason was like, man, she's doing great because there's so many different voices and you have to know when the narrator is speaking and then know when it's a character. Yeah. And she does such a good job. Okay. Really, really. So anyway, Greg Olson, this is a book called If You Tell, and it's a tough read. It is researched very well. He was actually asked by the family members to write this book. Oh. It was very important for them. That was in 2017, I believe, that started. So this is not that old of a book, but he really goes in and it's memory, it's memory of conversations. It's also what was reported, investigatively, you know, like by the police, things like that. So there's enough of a paper trail and it's newer enough. It's within, you know, the last 25 years, all of this happened. So like there is a lot of history that's tangibly available to him. So he got a lot done. Anyway, so there is so much packed into this. There are so many memories. There are so many examples of the evil of this woman who is known as the America's most evil mom.
That's a rough title in this country.
And she's been called that, right? All over the world. This is America's most evil mom. But there's so many examples that all of her children have given, and it's gonna feel like at the end I kind of speed up because there's so much. There's so much, and I don't want to minimize what she did, but I'm trying to keep this in a reasonable time frame. So, disclaimer: if you are cautionary tale here, that there is going to be very graphic descriptions of abuse to children and to adults, and so there's domestic violence, yes. But just very sadistic, narcissistic things. And so heads up, this is going to...
I keep making noises. I was trying to make less noise and I make more noise. So sorry.
That's okay. That's his fault for giving him a metal straw. All right. But anyway, I just... Heads up. It's not going to be a fun story. And I know everyone's like, God, Kat, why do you always do these fucking stories? But here we are. All right. Let's just get into it. All right. So my story tonight is about a woman named Michelle or Shelley Knotek. Have you heard of her?
I have not.
I
didn't want to look the story up.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. So yeah. So I had not heard of her, which surprises me because it's not that old of a story and it's been in the news quite a bit lately. And I'll get into that later. But so Michelle Shelley Knotek, Shelly, was born Michelle Watson in 1954 to Les and Sharon Watson. She was the oldest of three kiddos that they had. There was Shelly, who was the oldest. Then there was Chuck, and then there was Paul. Les eventually left Sharon with the 3 kids. He said that she was a depressive alcoholic. She was and there's one picture that is, there might be 2, but there's one picture that is sort of like, this is Shelly's mom. She looks pissed off, and it's a black and white photo, and I think it's the sun sort of shining in her eyes, but she just looks pissed off. It's probably not far from who she actually was. Like, she just didn't look like a very happy person. Anyway, so he left her with the children, and I guess there was some kind of communication between them that if he ever got remarried, he would take on the kids. And so he did eventually get married. He lied about his age and married a very young, beautiful, he was a very popular dude, but young, beautiful woman named Laura. And she's named Laura in the book. Greg Olson changed her name. So Laura Watson was not really that was not her first name.
Okay.
I think she wanted to be a little bit unfindable after all of this.
Understand.
Yeah. So Sharon, after Laura and Les got married, Sharon called and says, well, when are you going to come and pick up these damn kids? And Sharon's like, Laura was like, oh, well, damn, I didn't know he had 3 children.
Oh,
so
damn.
She was like, okay, well, what is she going to do? She married this guy. There's these children. And he explained to her that these kids are with this person who is unhealthy. And so she didn't really have a choice. And so she took on the 2 oldest kids, Shelly and Chuck. And when she dropped those kids off, that was pretty much the last those 2 children ever saw of her. She pretty much just bounced as a mom. There weren't Christmas cards. There weren't birthday cards. There were no phone calls. There was nothing. She just was like, you're your dad's problem now. At this point, Shelly was 6. Chuck was about 3 when all of this happened. And right away, you could see that something wasn't right with these 2 kids. Chuck didn't speak. Shelly spoke for him. If he was asked a question, she would answer for him. She was his boss. This is at 6 and 3.
Oh, wow.
Their neighbor told Laura that it's Laura, Lara, but Laura, I don't know. That he could see Chuck in his bedroom window sometimes just crying.
Oh, how.
And that happened a lot.
That's so sad.
Like, who knows what was happening in that poor child's mind. Meanwhile, Sharon was living in Northern California, and they were living in Battlefield, Washington. Oh my God, it's I'm gonna get it. It's in there somewhere. It's in my brain somewhere. Anyway, so she was living in Northern California, and so she went up to drop them off, went back down, and she was in a very abusive relationship, and she was living on what they said was Skid Row. So this is, back in the day where that's what they called the bad part of town, was Skid Row. And so she was living on Skid Row, somewhat homeless, abusing drugs and alcohol, and was murdered by her boyfriend. And so Paul, the youngest, Les had to go identify the body, and then this was like 7 years after all of this went down with her dropping off the other 2. So Les went down, identified the body, and took Paul back up to Washington with him. So now Laura has just married into a ready-made family. She's got the 2 older ones, Shelly and Chuck, and now there's Paul, who is the youngest. When Shelly, who is now 13, was told of her mother's passing, she was like, okay. Like, no reaction.
Yeah.
She hadn't spoken to her mom. She never had asked about her mom. Laura said, like, once her mom was gone, she had zero interest in what was happening with her mom.
Yeah.
So only Shelly knows what those years entailed.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody knows. Nobody knows what happened to her as a kid.
Yeah.
In those first 6 years. So now Paul was the wild child. He would get up on the counters looking for food. jump up, open the cabinets, look for food. If he didn't see something he liked, he would just throw it out onto the floor, like almost cartoonish, like bloom, bloom, bloom.
Yeah.
It makes me think, like, in my mind, as like someone who was like brought up by monkeys or wolves or something, just very
unsupervised,
eat or be eaten.
Yeah.
Very, like poor impulse control, just wild.
Yeah.
It just, I feel like he had to that's how he had to survive. But this little motley crew of children was 100% run by Shelly. Whatever Shelly wanted, Shelly got. 100%. She was the boss of those two children. She was the willful one. Chuck was the silent one. Paul was the wild one. Holy hell. That just sounds like a nightmare. Shelly was immediately the hardest one to deal with. Everyone had their own problems, but she was very, very difficult to deal with. If she didn't get her way, she wouldn't just throw tantrums. She would find another way to get what she wanted, and she would be able to manipulate everybody in every situation. She found that one little thing, and she could just wear somebody down. Her stepmom would buy her all these nice clothes, and she would complain about it. And so she started taking, she would leave for school, packing in her bag another set of clothes. On her way to school, stop at the gas station, change, and leave the brand new clothes in the bathroom.
Oh my God, what a brat.
The gas station called her mom. I mean, it's like, not a very big town. They're like, there's a girl that keeps coming in here and is leaving. So sure enough, Laura went to the gas station, and all of these brand new clothes were left at the gas station.
That's crazy that it's so small that the gas station knew who to call. Because here, you would never know.
I mean, you would never know. They're like, there's a girl, I think that's your daughter. Like,
Yeah.
And just a little bitch, right? She was always giving Laura a hard time, always telling her how much she hated her, what a horrible mom she was just relentless. She was never happy. It was always just mean. Les, on the other hand, saw her as like a princess, sort of treated her like a princess. I mean, that's daddy's little girl. I don't know if that's how he felt about it, but in Laura's eyes, even as an adult, Shelly was his princess, so it was very weird. And this is a quote from the book. Shelly's behavior began to change from being merely disruptive and ungrateful to dark and vengeful. End quote. She hated anyone getting attention. So when the two brothers are both there and they got any attention, she would find a way to circle it back and be the center of attention, good or bad. It wasn't usually bad. Yeah. It wasn't ever like, I'm going to clean the house and get lots of A's. And, like it was always like, I'm going to find a way to have everybody turn around and look at me and talk about me and worry about me. And so at one point, and this is even before she was a teenager, she would break up glass.
Yeah.
And put it in her brother's shoes.
Oh my God.
I mean, that is the first sign of how this.
I don't feel like that's the first sign, but it's definitely a sign.
It's. Who does shit like that?
Yeah.
But
I think there was like more signs leading up to this.
Oh, I know, but that's like straight. That's
a psychopath.
That is. Okay. Her grandmother, though, was her teacher. Not Sharon's mom, but Les's mom. Her name was Anna Watson. And this woman was a woman to be feared. She actually ran one of the nursing homes that Les and Laura owned. They were successful business people. They owned several of these. And so Anna ran one of them. And Anna hated Laura just as much as Shelly did. Am I buzzing or is that you?
That's you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. She was just mean to be mean. It just mean to be mean. And Anna ran that nursing home with an iron fist, and it had to be done her way, or you would feel her wrath. She would even give employees swirlies.
Oh my God.
And then like verbally abuse them, call them all the R word, call them all kinds of like awful things. Just like, those are my R words. Like, wow. But people kept working there. I mean, if you don't have that many places to, if you're in a rural location, you gotta,
the money, you know.
She was just awful. Mean. And she just hated Laura. So anything that Jason, no more.
Oh wait, there's no more ice. So okay. I can drink it normally. Okay.
So Shelly started to go to the nursing home where Anna worked after school. And instead of going home, and then Laura would be worried, would call, and yeah, she's here. So she would go and pick her up. And she would always end up being yelled at by Anna, like, what a bad mom Laura was. Well, you don't brush her hair properly, so I cut it. And Shelly had this beautiful, long, wavy, red, just beautiful hair. And Anna chopped it off. Not nicely. She had no scissoring skills.
Yeah.
And she's like, see, you don't know how to brush it, so I cut it. Shelly was mortified, but she didn't say anything. She was like, well, what do you can't complain. That's her hero, and she knows why she's doing it. She's watching everything, right? Anna was also married. Anna had a husband. He was a sweet, gentle. He was smaller than Anna. And he was just not forceful at all. And for 20 years, 20 years, George slept outside of the house in an 8x8 shed just outside of the back door. Slept in a shed because Anna did not want him in the house.
Why would you?
This was Shelly's teacher. She was soaking in everything.
Yeah.
So at 15, Shelly got worse. She told school officials that Les, her dad, was raping her.
Oh my God.
So she went to a juvenile facility. Yes, Kevin. She went to a juvenile facility, so she went to school, told them this, and they took her out, and she went into like authority, custody, into some kind of custody to be out of that house while they did the investigation. They didn't call Les and Laura. No one knew. So Laura's like, where's my daughter? She didn't come home. Have you seen her? And they're like, she's at a juvenile facility. Well, why? We can't tell you. You can go to such and such. They were really cold. And she was like, something is up. And she thought, did she put glass in someone's shoes?
Yeah.
Did she steal something? Did she vandalize something? So they went up to the school. They weren't told anything. Finally, they were like, she's accused you, Les, of raping her. And they really took her word for it because they were very cold, they were dumbfounded. Laura was pissed, actually. Laura was just pissed off. Like, here she goes again with her tantrums.
Yeah.
So they go back to the house, and Laura goes into her room, and Shelly's a fucking slob. And so she's like, there's dirty dishes and clothes and everything, right? So she puts her hand under the bed, and she felt a magazine under the mattress. So she pulls it out, and it's one of these true crime magazines back in the day.
Yeah.
And it says, my dad raped me when I was 15. And basically, this chick plagiarized this magazine story and told it to school officials. The doctor who was giving her the SANE exam, the doing the rape kit, they were like, she's still intact, in quotes. Yeah. I'm doing intact. So her hymen was still there. This girl has never been touched. This is not an accurate accusation. So the school obviously. And he was a chair of a chamber of commerce, Les was. He was a prominent business official. He was a part of like Rotary and all these, like, he was like people we know. And you know what I mean? Like, this could have ruined him.
Yeah.
And they were just dumbfounded. So he goes back to the school. Shelly gets kicked out of that high school. They're like, we don't want you. You're a troublemaker. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. Sorry, but you're kicked out of this high school.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yeah, so I don't care. She didn't care. She didn't care. So when she got kicked out of school, did she care? Nope. When she was told that there's no way that you were raped, did she care? Nope. Did she ever apologize to her dad or admit that she lied? Nope. Never. Not once. Never, ever, ever. So after seeing all kinds of psychiatrists, which is what everyone was saying, she needs to go see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrists were like, this isn't working. This is not for her. And I think I think they realized before there was a diagnosis that this person was probably narcissistic, probably criminally insane. She loved the chaos that it caused, but everyone was paying attention to her. And so side note, I was on a plane a couple weeks ago to go to LA, right? And I saw my neighbor and I was like, hey, come sit next to me. And he saw that I was reading this book because I actually got the physical copy of it so I could take notes. And he was like, so this is the kind of person I would not want in my mental hospital because there's no helping her. This is a person who is, yes, crazy in like quotation marks, but not medicated wise, she's not treatable. She's like, he said, this is the kind of person you would want in a prison. This is a criminally insane person because of her behavior, like early on. Like, there's no remorse, there's no accountability, there's just not a care for anyone else's feelings, or it's just all about her. He's like, that's like exact opposite person that would be let into a psychiatric hospital. Yeah, because that's yeesh. Anyway, I digress. So Laura's at her wit's end. She's like, fuck, this kid's 15. She has to be in school. She can't be at my house all day. She needs to get an education. Like, she needs to still like try to like live her life as a normal person. Yeah. So she tried to get her into this fancy schmancy private school, and they're like, yeah, no, we looked you up and no way. Like they just straight flat out said, no, thank you. Yeah. She offered more money.
Oh, wow.
They said no. So then she found a Catholic school, sort of boarding school kind of place, and they took her. It was far enough away. So they took her. But they had to go every weekend to pick her up. Right. And she hated that.
Laura hated that, or Shelly?
Laura hated that. She was just like, oh, she's not around. And then every Friday she'd get real anxious, like, oh God, I gotta have this person back at my house. So yeah, that was really crappy for Laura. Anyway, so she, at the end of that year, got kicked out of that boarding school because she was putting glass in her classmates' shoes. She would cheat. She would lie. She would just bully people. She was just a horrible, horrible human being. And so, yeah, they're like, nope, get out of here. Then, see, I have to sort of like, there's so many stories and so many examples. I'm just going to kind of like get through the beginning of her life because we haven't even
talked about her being a mother yet.
Right, exactly. So, finally she went to go, she lived with, Laura's parents. That was a horrible situation. Then she lived with Les's sister, and she would give the sob story about, oh, Les and Laura are so mean to me, and Laura's the worst mom ever, and my real mom was murdered and abandoned me. And so there was just like sob story. And so the aunt was like, oh God, poor baby, come and live. You can come and live here and go to school here. And so Laura's like, go ahead, peace out. She didn't correct her. She didn't say, she is lying to you. She is going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
She didn't say any of that. And so off Shelly goes to go live with this aunt. And by the time it's all said and done, her aunt and uncle are getting divorced. And Shelly's like, bye. That was so great. I'm so glad I was here. Because she just like ruined their marriage. She basically caused accusations once again. She would like offer, I love to babysit kids. And then she would babysit them and then she would leave and the kids would be like, she locked us in the room all night and wouldn't let us come out because she was watching TV. She'd be like, oh, let me help you with the dishes. And then she would just throw the dishes away, even the pots and pans. She wouldn't do the dishes. She would just throw it all away. She was just a horrid, horrid, horrid child. I can see why people were just like, ugh. She just ruined everything. She loved it. But it was at her aunt's house, her senior year, that she, on the East Coast, when she was 17, that she met husband number one. They were just dating in high school, but that's where they met, Randy Rivardo. He was head over heels for this gorgeous redhead, and they dated. It was great. And then she left after that year to go back to Washington. And sooner or later, she ended up calling him and was like, how would you like to come here and work, live rent-free in one of my dad's places? He'll give you a job and you could save money to go to college, which is what he was trying to do. Yeah. And he was like, God, rent-free, a job. Okay. So he goes. I mean, just Venus flytrap.
Yeah.
And he says that it felt like they were already planning the wedding by the time he got out there. They got married so quickly that Les found him his groomsmen because he had no friends there yet. His family didn't even go to the wedding because Shelly didn't send them an invitation. She was just like, it was just, nope. It's all about me. I don't want you being the center of attention. So it was all about her. She had her little dream number one wedding. Venus flytrap. I'm telling you. Yeah. So Randy was working as a maintenance man. They were living in a little trailer kind of thing, rent free. She hated it. She was just like, she wanted a cute little house, and
she's the one that got them in this trailer.
Well, they moved into the trailer after they got married. So he was living in the little apartment, and so this is like a bigger place. Okay. It was like, I mean, it was a nice trailer, right? Yeah. She wanted a house. I know. Yeah. I mean, she was super lazy. She didn't want to work. Her dad actually fired her because apparently her periods lasted every day of the month, and she would complain about her cycles. So she just always had a period. And I'm crampy. And so like he was like, oh my gosh, you're fired. Like, imagine having to fire your own daughter. She didn't cook. She didn't know how to cook. So she didn't cook. She didn't clean. She watched a lot of TV and complained about where they lived. And she complained to her dad about not wanting to live in the free mobile home that he was providing. And when he said, no, like this is where you're going to live because you got to get a job. She faked a home invasion. Was like, but I don't feel safe here.
Surely they had to know it was a fake. I mean, with all of her other behavior.
Then when she was like, I want a new Volkswagen Bug, he comes home with a brand new Buick pink convertible car. And she throws a tantrum, stomps around, then fakes an overdose to the point of having her stomach pumped when the doctor says there was like 6 aspirin in her stomach. She faked it. She had her stomach pumped unnecessarily.
Because she didn't get the new car that she wanted. She got a different new car.
Pay attention to me. Oh my God. She was spending money like no tomorrow. Like she was just spending, running up a tab all over town. Randy was like, please stop letting her spend shit. Like we don't have the money. His credit was just getting ruined. In 1974, so this was, oh God, where am I? This was like 1972. So then in 1974, they found out they were pregnant, and everybody was like, oh God, maybe this is going to make things better. And Randy's family comes out to Washington and visits, brings all the excitement and all the baby toys and clothes and everything like that. And Shelly was pissed. She was pissed. Stayed in her room, didn't come out.
Wouldn't that have been attention for her? I don't understand.
No, because it was attention to the baby.
Oh my God.
So she was pissed. And so she stayed in her room, and Randy's like, well, fuck it. I'm going to go hang out with my family. But they left all these presents, and they brought him this sort of like a candy, like a taffy. They brought it to Battleground, Washington for him from his grandfather. He couldn't fly, for the grandfather. And by the time they left and Randy tasted his grandfather's candy, the one that was left for him, it was like salty. Shelly had like gone in and ruined all the candy. All the other batches were fine, but not the one that was left for Randy. His sister left some clothes behind, and Shelly was like, oh, I'll send it to you. And when it got to his sister, it was all cut up, like into shreds, but the box was just fine. And Shelly was like, oh, I guess that happened at the post office. So, baby Nikki was born in 1975, and she was gorgeous. Just a perfect baby, but you could tell Shelly had no idea what it took to be a mother, like caring about somebody else other than yourself.
Yeah.
So Laura was actually there every day for months to help. She actually didn't trust Shelly. Neither did Randy, but he was also like, we can't be with your mom every single day. So when they left, Laura would still go and visit all the time. They weren't far apart, but she would still visit. She was really worried about Nikki, honestly. But things with Randy weren't any better between Randy and Shelly. He was starting to sleep in the car. Sound familiar? And Shelly talked her dad into just going ahead and forwarding all of Randy's checks to her.
Oh my God.
All of his paychecks. This ensured that Randy had to come home. Yep. But he still had to work. Shelly was still running up all their debts. It was a horrible situation, and Randy didn't trust Shelly, but he had to get out of there, and so he did. He went back to the East Coast. She talked him into trying to reunite, so he was like okay, but figured out like nope, took 2 weeks. That reunion took 2 weeks, and he left
for leaving.
I think that it was hard on him because there was Nikki.
Yeah.
But it was self-preservation.
Yeah.
He had to leave. Like Les had to leave Sharon. It was self-preservation. There's this child. I'll take the child whenever you tell me to take the child. But like this was in the 70s. It wasn't. I don't know. So anyway, so at this point, Shelly sort of dropped off the face of the earth, which was fine, really. She was chaos personified. But Laura wanted to see Nikki, and she kept trying to find her, and with no luck. And then one day, a friend called Laura and said, "You got to come get Nikki because Shelly left her with me a month ago and hasn't been back." And so Laura was like, yes. So she goes, she grabs Nikki, brings her home, and just loves on this baby. She called her Thumper. Loved on this baby as much as she could. And it wasn't until almost a year later before Shelly ended up coming back to get Nikki. And there was no apology. There was no explanation. She just showed up, took Nikki, got her stuff, bounced. And she ended up moving into an apartment and worked at a bar to make ends meet. And Laura was worried. She was basically just leaving Nikki alone in that apartment. And so she was always trying to call her to see what was what. So she just showed up to the apartment one day and she wasn't home. Neither was Nikki. Nikki wasn't there either, but she wasn't home. But there was a man across the hallway who let her into Shelly's apartment. And that was Danny Long. And they were kind of like, why does this guy have a key to Shelly's apartment? Well, Danny, it turns out, would become husband number 2. And on June 2nd, 1978, are you seeing a pattern? You're looking at me like...
He lived across the hallway?
Uh-huh.
And they were married?
No.
He would become
husband number 2.
Okay.
On June 2nd, 1978. At this point, Grandma Anna had died and left her favorite grandchild her house. So they moved into Grandma Anna's house. And that August, Sammy was born. So this is in 1978.
This is the second child?
Second child. So Danny was a great dad to the girls, but the relationship was just as rocky with Shelly as it was with Randy, right? Lots of fights. But unlike Randy, Danny stuck up for himself. So it was much more volatile. It was much more combative. And Laura said that there would be holes in the wall and she wasn't sure who did it. She was never sure who was leaving all of that death and just destruction, And so finally, he never hit Shelly. It was never like that. But Laura could never say that it wasn't the same. But Danny did try to stay in Sammy's life, but Laura sort of kept everybody else away. There was she had a very it's us against the world way of raising those girls. And I've seen that kind of behavior. Like, this is us. What happens in our family is private. You do not talk about it. You don't let anybody else in. You're sort of like everybody. Yeah. It is us against the world. And I've seen that in action before, and it's not healthy. Because if people don't open up about what's happening at home, that's just you're not dealing with that trauma, right? So sorry. But Danny would do something different. He left a lot. He would leave her a lot. And would just be like, I'm going to go get some air. And he would just get in the car and go. Well, Shelly would pack up the girls and get in the car and go on the hunt for him. And that was something that they would say this a lot about her, that she loved to hunt. Sorry, I had to take a drink. So she would go on the hunt for
it's a game to her.
It's absolutely a game. It's a cycle of violence, right? Yeah. So if you look at the domestic violence cycle, there's the honeymoon, and then it raises up, and then there's the thing, and then there's the big conflict, there's the big event, and then it's like, oh well, I'm gonna find you, and then I'm gonna be sweet again, and then it starts all over, and you go back to the honeymoon, you go back to that. So eventually in 1983, things got too rocky, and so Danny bounced at that point. It was very hard on the girls because he was a really good dad, and they loved him. And so, the girls were always told if a new boy came around that they would have to call him dad, and they hated that because they loved Danny. Danny was just a really good dad. But eventually, Shelly had already found her husband, number 3, in 1983. She had found herself Dave Knotek. And so this is the last husband for her at this point. So Shelly, right now, in 1983, she's 29. She's 2 marriages in, 2 kids from 2 different fathers. And she was really looking for her next catch because she didn't work. And she had a house to pay for. And so she had the girls call, like I said, every new guy that she tried to bring into their life, dad.
Even when they were just dating.
Yep. And so it was a way for her to expedite the courtship, right? But Dave, she was gorgeous. you know, she was a stunner. I sent you the pictures. She was gorgeous. And so Dave saw this beautiful redhead with a body that anybody just would die for, right? Curves, thin, but curvy, just gorgeous. A smile that probably lit up a room. She was a lot of fun. And he fell hard for her. And they didn't live in the same city, and he was on the rebound, really. They didn't live in the same city, so he started making weekly trips to see her. He lived in Raymond, Washington, which is a little bit more rural, and he was sort of like, I'm going to go to the beach kind of area, and that's how they met. And I would have,
yes,
Kat, personally, probably would have taken it as a sign that the bar where they met burned down the very next day. So there wouldn't be a chance for them to have a chance encounter again.
Yeah.
But he had gotten her number. And so they kept in touch and started to make these weekly visits. And for Shelly, financially, things were not looking good. And she was living in this home that was in her family for generations. It belonged to her favorite family member. He tried to help her save it, but eventually it did go into foreclosure. And it was around this time that she broke the news to Dave that she was dying of cancer. And all of
God, I don't mean to laugh. It's so ridiculous.
And it was around this time that Nikki was just trying to figure out, like, she was still a very young girl, about 8 at this time, but she has a very clear memory of her mom. Do I have a child behind me?
No, I'm looking right at you.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just trying to.
Okay, I'm just making sure. It's like,
Yeah,
I feel like there's a child right here.
Well, I don't know if there's a spirit child, but there's no
I know.
actual child behind you.
It's not a scary story.
I'm
like,
just chilling, listening to
all right.
this chaos.
It's chaos, right? There's so much. And I told Jason, I'm like, I cut out a lot and still a very long story. So I'm sorry. Okay. So Nikki was about 8 and she has this memory of somebody putting a pillow over her face when she was sleeping. And she's fighting it, calls for her mom, and their mom appears. Like, immediately. Like, too fast.
Yeah.
For even an 8-year-old. Like, Mommy, somebody was putting a pillow over my face. No, honey, that was a bad dream. Wow. Nikki, at 8, knew that her mom had just tried to kill her and was gaslighting her. At 8. Knew this about her mother. And she was terrified. Like, that is, at 8 years old, I don't even understand that.
At any age, that would be terrifying.
I can't even understand that. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, my kids are 7 and 9. Like, what are they going to remember? Oh my God, they're going to remember so much. Well, they're going to be in therapy later. But I'm not even doing anything nearly as bad. Anyway, so then this is when, around this time, that Shelly dropped that cancer bombshell. She was like, I'm not going to make it. I don't think I'm going to live another 5 years or whatever. And Dave would say later that he didn't marry Shelly just because of the girls, but that was a very big part of it. He loved those girls, and he was okay filling in for as a dad because he could see that they needed a dad.
Yeah.
He came from a really strict sort of household. Like, he was beat by his dad, but he always felt like he deserved it. So he was like, you know, they would get
perfect for Shelly.
Get spanked, you know, like he'd get a whooping, but he would get himself in trouble. He was in the army, so he was used to taking orders. So,
yeah,
perfection. She's found her perfect mate. So it became official in December on December 28th, 1987, Dave and Shelley Knotek were married. One of the witnesses at the wedding was Shelly's hairdresser and best friend, I'm putting that in quotes, Kathy Loreno. So remember that name in a bit. The marriage was almost immediately unhealthy and volatile. Shocker. He was a very calm, very cool, collected person. Shelly was like a tornado, she was the Tasmanian devil.
Yeah.
Right, all the time. And Dave would just be like, calm, cool, collected. He never yelled back. He never fought back. She would hit him. She would push him. He never did that because that is not how men treat women. That was how he was very clear about that.
Yeah.
Men do not do that to women. They can do that to him apparently, but you do not. You do not retaliate.
Yeah.
Nikki remembers walking onto the porch of their home and found Dave in tears, despondent, with a gun to his head in suicide position. And could hear Shelly in the house telling him what a horrible husband he is. You don't love us. You're a fucking sad excuse for a husband. If you loved us, you would work harder and make more money. She was awful. Awful. And he was just taking it. And she could see, like I said, whatever Shelly wanted, Shelly got. And you don't argue with her. She yelled, you don't yell back. It was just like she found in Dave what she needed. She needed somebody who was going to do her bidding. It wasn't that he wouldn't have those heart to hearts like, this isn't right. This isn't okay. And she would say, yes, this is how people work things out. This is exactly it. This is normal. And he's like, this isn't normal for me. She's like, but this is it. And just that cycle of violence would just continue, and it would be short sometimes, and it would be long sometimes, but that cycle continued. They moved into a new place in Old Willapa, into a home they called the Louderbeck House, and after the original owners. It was a super cute little house, one Shelly wished they owned, but they didn't have enough money. She should get a job, just saying. Mm-hmm. They always said, she always said she'd get a job, and never did. Never one that lasted anyway. So this was the house where all of the bad things started happening in.
All of the bad things? You mean they haven't started happening yet?
No, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to go really fast.
Oh my goodness.
This is the place.
Well, it wasn't about going fast. It was just, you've been listing nothing but bad things, and then you're like, oh, this is where all the bad things happen.
I've been trying to give you some context into her life, and I'm just okay. So this is the place where they learned that anything was a weapon: cords, fishing pole, lamp, duct tape, bleach, whatever was closest to her. Okay. She loved spending time thinking about punishments that she was going to do on the girls. Person. Anything could set her off or nothing. She could just be like, today I want to beat my children, and it would happen. You're just a bad person. Don't do that again. And I'd be like, oh God, what did I do? Okay, guess Mom, I'll never do that again. These outbursts sort of came out of nowhere. And no rhyme or reason at all. And Nikki would hide her legs by wearing opaque tights to school. And no one ever asked her why. Not gym teachers, nothing. You're wearing opaque tights in summer with gym shorts, and nobody asked her why. God damn it, not one person. Shelly was cruel, just to be cruel. She would give presents at Christmas time and then take them away. She would hide presents and say, well, where is that one present? And she would hide them when the girls were off doing whatever. And then they would be like, I don't know. And then she would be like, God damn it, you ungrateful little bitches. Make them tear the house apart and, all night long. And then they would find that one toy hidden somewhere, hidden on purpose by their mother. She told them the well was running dry and they would have to check with her before using the bathroom or taking a shower. She was making life miserable for them. The cruelty was the point. Then the wallowing started. This was a form of punishment usually only used on Nikki at this point, where she would be told to strip down naked and wallow in the mud outside while Dave sprayed her with a hose, with Shelly telling him what to do. Spray her with the hose again, Dave. tell her to wallow, Dave. And then so Dave would be like, Nikki, you have to wallow, Nikki, wallow. And you're like, I'm so sorry. Like she was this, like an animal. It didn't matter if it was cold outside, hot outside. This is Washington. It's probably always fucking cold there.
Yeah.
Not a lot of sun there, right? No problem. That's what they were going to do. And so there was like always sort of this mud pit where that happened. Like it was always sort of muddy in that little area. I'm sorry, I lost my place. So Sammy would be watching from the bedroom. Sammy was sort of the golden child and was sort of always the golden child to Nikki, the way that she saw it. Sammy did get punished, but not quite as much as Nikki did, and not nearly to the degree. So Sammy wasn't really ever made to wallow.
I wonder why that was. Like, I wonder what about Sammy made Shelley not
age. She was first. Sammy ended up spending. Their temperaments were also really different. Nikki would say that Sammy used her humor, and I actually say this later. She used her humor to get out of things. She didn't fight back as much. Nikki was very defiant. Like, I'm not going to do that, and like would run instead of just going ahead and taking the beating.
Oh, okay.
And then that would make Shelley even angrier. Nikki never buttered her up, and Sammy absolutely did. Oh, here you go, Mom. I made you this. So sort of like she sort of kissed
that center of
yes,
attention.
she kissed her ass a little bit more than Nikki would ever want to do. And so Sammy learned how to use her humor. Sammy had friends, was a little bit more popular, and so I think as they got older, Shelley didn't want Sammy to tell her anybody. Like there was more of a risk of that, so she was a little bit nicer to Sammy. But she was watching Nikki go through this, and Nikki guessed she was made to wallow maybe dozens of times in her life. Then there came the locking up, and Shelley would not lock Nikki up for hours, days, weeks. Nikki thinks she actually spent an entire summer locked in the closet of her bedroom. But this is where she learned to read. She learned to love to read. She read everything that was stored in like all the crime novels, all the romance novels. She read everything that was in that closet. Sammy wouldn't be allowed to speak to her, but would have to empty the bucket that she was given to go to the bathroom in. And that just had to be a quick transaction. For Nikki, she was locked up. Yes, it was a prison. Yes, but she wasn't being made to wallow, and she wasn't being beaten on. So there was she saw the silver lining to that. I know.
To prefer to be locked up because is oh my gosh, I can't imagine as being a child.
I know. So then she'd be let out and then make Shelley mad again and be forced back in her closet. And one time Shelley tried to beat Nikki and Nikki ran, which pissed her off. And then Shelley slammed her head against the wall and there was a protruding nail and it went into Nikki's skull and it sort of like shocked her. And she didn't start crying right away, but it scared the hell out of Shelley. And that was like the one time that there was one other time that it didn't happen here, but it was one other time that Shelley it was when she ran through a glass door and was cut all over that Shelley actually apologized. That was the one time. But she also said, "Look what you made me do. Why did you make me do that?" That was always her. Yeah. Like, why did you make me do that? Don't do that. She probably should have gone to the ER, but Shelley would have never have allowed that because she would have had to explain all the other bruises and marks and things like that on any of her girls' bodies. All the bruises from the cords and things like that. Yeah. In the summer of 1988, Shane Watson, the son of Shelley's brother Paul, who was the wild one and was in lots and lots of trouble, he had a kid. He was a mess on drugs, was on the run. Anyway, he
the kid or Paul?
Paul.
Okay.
Shane was about 13 at this point. Everybody was like, oh, well, Shelly would be a great house for this kid to be in. And so Shane at 13.
Who in the fuck thought that would be a good house?
Everybody else, because that nobody knew anything. The girls never said anything bad about their mom. So then.
Story's stressing me out.
I know, I'm so sorry. And I'm trying to go so fast. So he was 13. He began to call Shelly and Dave mom and dad really right away because he didn't have that before. And everything was hunky-dory at the beginning. Really, it was a stable home to him for a minute. For a hot second. Because Shelly was all sunshine and roses, right? Rainbows everywhere at first. But then he got to learn the other side. And he learned it, excuse me, he learned it really, really quickly. He learned early. You don't want to make this woman mad. This is someone to fear. He became the chore boy and not really getting to enjoy being a kid. He had a very long list of to-dos on a very long list of honeydew, that list. Yeah. But he started to piss Shelly off for whatever reason. For whatever reason. There's never a reason. And then the shit hit the fan at that point, and he was already sleeping in the basement, which smelled like diesel. But he did have a bed, and he did have his clothes, and he did have his things. But she started to take away those things, and then he started to get his clothes taken away, and then the showers got taken away, and then the bed got taken away. It was just the weekly shower at that point, and then that would even get. That may not even happen. It got to the point where it wasn't until a surprise visit from Laura when she was like, I want to see where the kids sleep, that she saw the state of Shane's room, and Shelly was like, I just haven't gotten around to it. And she's like, Jesus, Shelly, here's the money. Go get them
Can I ask a question? These kids are in public school and they're only taking weekly showers and no one is concerned about their hygiene or why?
Yes. All of that. I know. So Shelly focused in on Shane and Nikki and started punishing them together. She could see that there was like a common bond between them. They weren't far apart in age. But because of Shelly's, like, you two are going to be my punching bags, they started, like, there became this bond. Like, we're going to talk bad about Shelly. We're going to, like, why is your mom so fucking crazy? I don't know. We should put a radio in her bathtub, that kind of, like, they talked about leaving. They talked about that kind of stuff. Anyway, but she used to use nudity as a form of abuse and would make them, like, strip naked and then slow dance in front of the family while they just cried. She would strip Shane down, wrap his ankles and wrists with duct tape, put him by the front door, and rub icy hot on his penis. She would put them outside and make them sit. She was obsessed with nudity, but the cruelty was the point. The dehumanization, the inability to run away if you're nude. That sort of, that was the point of it. In Christmas of 1988, Shelly was 34 and pregnant with her third baby, and this one with Dave. Okay, so third baby, third husband. She announced that Kathy Loreno, the witness at her wedding, would be moving in. And Kathy was this super sweet, very loyal, and caring friend of Shelly's. She was the hairstylist, and she would do all the girls' hair all the time. She would, perm their hair. This is big in that time. She did everything for her mom and had tried to, like, more than she should have. Her sister would say, like, her mom really used her. And finally, Shelly was like, I'm going to work at a salon and I'm going to get my own place. But she was living in a town that if you didn't grow up there and you didn't have a network there and you were kind of shy, like that was going to be really hard to build clientele. So right away, like money started to be an issue. She lost the home. She didn't, there was just one thing after another. And so in comes Shelly as the savior. And it's like, you could come in with me. I'm pregnant and I have cancer and I could really use your help. And of course, Kathy's like, absolutely. I love you. Thank you so much. And you don't have to pay rent. I could just really use your help around the house. And, you know, so she, at first, again, that there was that honeymoon period, and Kathy was super happy to be of service and to be of help. And she was like, nobody works harder than your mom, girls. Why can't you guys be nicer to her? Her mom didn't work. Her mom watched TV and ate bonbons, like literally. But so baby Tori, the third baby, was born in 1989, and Dave thought that she was a miracle baby because she was born to a woman going through years and years and years of chemo.
These people thought she was going to chemotherapy treatment.
Dave was taking her to the hospital, and I say this later, but Dave was taking her to the hospital and waiting in the car because she was so proud. She didn't want him coming.
What a fucking extravagant lie. God.
And
she's such a manipulator.
And he didn't know anything about anything. And he'd be like, she's there all day getting chemo. And Laura was like, chemo doesn't take all day, Dave.
What was she doing in the hospital all day?
She would go out the back door and probably go to the movies, go shopping, go wherever, and would leave him in the waiting room and then would show back up. Okay, ready to go home. Just spend the day doing whatever she wanted. Anyway, so since she was a preemie, Tori was, Shelly told everyone that Tori had underdeveloped lungs, and that the doctor sent her home with like a heart monitor and a special bed with like alarms should anything happen. Because when she first brought Tori home, Tori stopped breathing. And then they had to rush her to the hospital, and they're like, maybe she has like some kind of thing. And so they sent her home with all the monitors. Well, she had to sleep in the living room next to the crib, and every night, the monitors would go off and the older girls would come running down. Is she okay? Is she okay? And there would Kathy be like bouncing the baby. Oh, she's fine now, girls. I got her. She's okay now. I have her. One night, Nikki comes down and she sees Shelly with a pillow over baby Tori's face. And when Shelly notices that Nikki's standing there, she turns around, sees Nikki, and was like, she's okay now. Everything's okay. But the alarms hadn't gone off yet. And at that moment, Nikki was like, she's fucking doing that same thing. She was like, I wonder if Sammy had that same memory. Like, she didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
But she's like, holy shit, my mom was trying to kill this little sister. But she was getting all the attention. Dave would even say she was a great baby mom. Like, that was the sweet spot when they're babies, because everybody's like, oh, look at your beautiful baby. Oh my God, she looks just like you, blah, 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 right? You get all the kind of gushing attention. But when they get older, they're like, oh, there's your kid. All right.
Yeah.
Nobody pays that much attention to you anymore. It's like, that's your kid. Like, it's not a big deal. So she loved that attention, positive or not. Anyway, so Kathy did what she could to help Shelly. She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of the kids, helped them with their homework, the whole thing. But then she'd pissed Shelly off, and that honeymoon period ended right away. And the same punishments that she'd been using on her kids, on others, started to happen to Kathy, and she started to take the brunt of her punishments, and the kids sort of moved to the background, but not 100%. They were still, Shane was still focused on, Nikki was still a focus, but really, it was really all on Kathy. And then she would make Shane also step in, when Dave wasn't around, to punish Kathy. And so she used her children. She was a very passive abuser, because she could tell them what to do, whatever she wanted them to do. So they ended up doing a lot of the abusing, or participating in it in some way. She made Kathy do chores around the house naked, and Kathy was a bigger girl. Kathy was very, very tall, but she was also like a bigger girl. And she would keep Kathy from eating by saying that she was sleep eating, like sleepwalking and eating. And she would say, like, "You're a fucking pig, Kathy. Like, blah, blah. This is why you can't lose any weight, because you're eating in your sleep," and this kind of stuff. And just really was a horrible, horrible thing. They say that uh, uh, Kathy lost in excess of over 100 pounds, based on a photo. There is a photo that does exist of her naked doing chores in the house, and so there's a before photo and during that. So you could tell she had just become very, very sick, living in that house. The kids, she started to make Kathy ride in the trunk of the family's car, and they would keep her there while they went and did whatever. She would lock Kathy in the closet if anybody came over, and Kathy sort of was being controlled not just by her fear of Shelly, but also by the drugs that Shelly was giving her, and they didn't really know what those drugs were. And Shane and Nikki had gone in to investigate, but there was anything from not lorazepam, there was Prozac, there was all kinds of drugs, like things I've never even heard of. And so she was just, every time something happened, Shelly was just giving her another pill. If they would say, "Oh, I have a headache," Shelly would give them a pill. And so, like, even now as adults, they're like, "What am I taking? What is this?" So like there's a fear of taking anything just for pain. There's that sort of trigger. So she, like I said, she lost over 100 pounds. They would make her sit in the trunk, and they would go do laundry, and the kids would be like, "Kathy, are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. How's the weather out there?" "It's nice. It's nice. Kind of a mild day." "Oh, great. Yeah, we're almost done." "Okay. I'm okay." And just dwindled as a human. Um, at this point, so Kathy's dwindling as a human. All three kids are now born. They move to an even more secluded home in Dave's hometown of Raymond, Washington. This is when Kathy wasn't allowed showers inside anymore. She was hosed down outside in any kind of weather. Shelly took to using bleach instead of soap when she would hose her down, and to take the bleach to all the wounds would cause her to just scream in pain. And Shelly would, tell her she was a filthy pig, and would just be, yes. She would call her a filthy pig and tell her to clean up. And then she would be like, "Doesn't that feel so much better?" after it was all over. Sweet, sweet voice. Kathy did try to escape several times. But again, Shelly would hunt her down, like she did everybody else. She even made a run for it naked, but she couldn't escape. She would be talked back into coming home, sometimes in front of other people. She just couldn't, she just wasn't strong enough anymore to stand up for herself. She used to fight back, and then she couldn't anymore. She wasn't 100% there because of the drugs, malnutrition, severe beatings, all those things. Now Dave, for his part, I haven't really talked too much about him, but Dave, for his part, was working day and night to pay for Shelly and her spending. Still the same. But he was also disappearing. I'm sure this is for self-preservation. He worked hard at a very physically demanding job. He was in like the logging kind of industry. He barely slept and would work many, 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 many hours, would try to sleep at work, or sleep in his truck. Then he'd have to drive hours home for the weekend, and he'd take caffeine pills. He was doing like no-dos or whatever to stay awake, and that made him crazy too. So he was being beat down emotionally, mentally, and then physically by his own lack of sleep and his grueling job and the driving. But he saw less and less of Kathy every time he went home for the weekends. And meanwhile, Shelly was still getting her cancer treatments, and Laura was calling her out on her bullshit. Like, Dave, this is not. She was trying to convince everybody. So Laura actually made a surprise visit. Or no, not a surprise visit, but Laura went to go visit around the time where she was saying, Dave, she's lying to you. And Shelly answered the door, and I fucking kid you not, with shaved eyebrows so that it looked like she had lost all of her hair, and with like white caked makeup on so that the way that Laura described it was like a kabuki actress, right? Like just, she looked ridiculous. And she'd answer the door, hi, I'm so sick. And she still looked like a healthy person. She still had all the hair on her head. She didn't go bald. Yeah. But she just lost her eyebrows, right? It was so dumb. Anyway, so Shane was now 16, was beginning to fail in his classes and school. Shocker. His clothes were not great or clean, and they were almost the same clothes every day. He smelled. He was oily. He was still doing manual labor at the house. And so he was pretty bad. He went from being like the cool new kid to being the weird kid and the outcast. And so he was, nobody said anything. No teacher ever stepped in. Jesus Christ. So he was still being punished. He was being used to punish Kathy as well, much in the same way that Dave used to when he was around a lot. So he was he sort of stepped in as Dave. What Shelly wanted to happen happened, and Kathy knew the kids couldn't help her. There was actually empathy in her eyes. They would say later, like, I know you can't help me because if you help me, it'll be bad for you. And there was sort of like a resignation for her, like, there's nothing you can do for me, and that's okay. It's so sad. But as Shane ramped up his abuse of Kathy, he started to formulate a way for him to escape. He would talk to Nikki all about it. I'm ready to leave, but when I say it's time to go, if you're going to come with me, come with me. And she would say, don't go without me. So like they sort of had this pact, right? Kathy continued to decline and was moved inside the house at that point because she was living in an outside house. And she was deteriorating at that point, though, and they couldn't stop it. They don't know what kind of drugs she was on. The kids don't know. Yeah. But she did end up dying in the back room of their house. And Shelly told Dave to wait till she got all of the kids out of the house. And they went to go stay in a motel for a few days. And at that point, Dave burned Kathy's body in a burn pit in the backyard, and no evidence was left behind. He took whatever ashes were there, spread them on two different beaches and on the gravel road, and it's gone. Kathy's family was told that she went off with a man named Rocky, that Shelly would mail herself postcards from Kathy from all over like the West Coast to make up for to give a little evidence of that. But there was a problem. Shelly took pictures of Kathy dead. And Shelly took pictures of Kathy dead, and Shane found one and had it and showed it to Nikki. They killed Kathy, and I'm taking this to the police. And Nikki turned him in to Shelly.
Oh my God, why?
She was scared. She was scared because it was going to tear apart the entire family. And I don't know that she's ever forgiven herself for that. But at that point, Shelly was like, Dave, Shane is going to ruin this family. He's going to turn us in and we're going to all go to jail and this, that, and the other. And so she convinced Dave to kill the boy that called him dad, and went outside. And while Shane was working in the shed, shot him with a rifle in the back of the head. And suddenly Shane was gone. Shelly told everyone that he hopped on a fishing boat in Alaska, which was a real popular thing back then. I don't know if you kind of remember that time, like come go to Alaska on a fishing boat and earn lots of money. And Nikki and the girls knew, well, Nikki really knew that Shane would have never done that without telling them. She just didn't have any proof. But all of a sudden, Shane was gone. So at this point, both Nikki and Sammy told later that they had each of them had tried to commit suicide and failed at this point, like not too far apart from one another, but each of them did not know that this was happening. Like they each had their issues. Nikki began to be separated from her sisters. Shelly was convincing the younger ones that Nikki was bad and a bad influence, and they shouldn't talk to her anymore. Nikki just had to get through school. She had a focus. She's like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to have my own life. And so she was very laser focused. Just survive high school. And then you can leave. Like, just get out of here. That was her plan. So in 1993, Nikki graduated. And after a setback or 3, managed to move in with her grandmother, Laura. Shelly, for her part, kept trying to get Nikki to come home, and so she could control her. She has a child who has just been abused her entire life out on the outside. She's going to tell somebody. Yeah. It's just a matter of time. She's going to tell somebody. And so they tried to intimidate her to come home. They would get her fired from jobs. They would throw rocks through the ice cream shop that she worked in. They were like, there was no way they were going to let her live on the outside, but she was not deterred. She was not scared, and she did not go home. But she also did not really have a relationship with her sisters either. So Sammy eventually also left for college. Graduated high school, left for college, and so Tori was home alone with Shelly, and she was no longer at this point allowed to or able to escape the punishments that her older sisters had gone through. So now she's it. There's no Shane, there's no Kathy, there's no Nikki, there's no Sammy. She was it. She was left alone. It started simple enough. Shelly, when she was like in elementary school, Shelly would tear up whatever work was supposed to go back to school, and you're just gonna have to do it over again, I guess. Just little fucking trolling kind of things just would make her lose her mind. Like, I know I did this. Like, where is it? And Shelly she was awful. When she was 8, the real physical abuse started. And the emotional abuse and the screaming, always the screaming. So Tori hit puberty. Shelly would check her progress, would make her strip naked, and she would check her progress. It's just humiliating. She'd like to see how she was developing, told her she needed to cut off her pubic hair for her baby book. Just disgusting stuff. In 2000, another person entered the Knotek household, Ron Woodworth, and you can tell that I'm sort of speeding through this end part because it's sort of like a repetition. I don't need, you've heard enough of the abuse. So he was a sweet older gay man who was really down on his luck. He'd just broken up with his partner of many years. He was very depressed. And then here comes Shelly swooping in to save some other wayward soul. And once again, it was great at first. And yes, Shelly dear. And thank you, Shelly dear. Would you like some pasta, Shelly dear? And it was all fun and games until it wasn't. And the pattern of abuse that I've talked way too long about has started all over again, but on Ron. And Shelly was at this time helping elderly people. Oh my God, I don't know how she was allowed to do that. But she was doing that to make ends meet, but also trying to get on their good side so that she could be put into their will, which is just what happens when Shelly started working with an older man named Mac And she was just the sweetest thing. She let Mac win at card games. He didn't have any family. He just had a dog. And so when Ron started to piss Shelly off so much, she was drugging him. She was starving him. She was nudity. All of that just wore this poor man down. She said, you know what? I'm tired of you. Go and live with Mac and take care of Mac. Well, at some point, Mac dies. And Shelly blames Ron for it. That he had a fall. He was very old. He had a fall. I believe that Shelly did it? Yes. But there's just no proof of that.
The fall?
The old man, Mac.
Okay.
So Mac had put the house goes to Shelly and gave her $8,800 to help take care of the dog for the rest of the dog's life. Well, yes. I'm not even going to say it because it upsets you so much. So she got $8,800 right away, and she had the house. And so she sort of kind of kept Ron at this house. Now, there was a whole other side story with Ron. She really separated him from his family. She just isolated him. She made his whole family hate him and started this fight. And so he was really he was on his own. And Shelly took advantage of that. It took years. Now, it took years after this is all going on right now, all going on. And it wasn't until 2001. So now Nikki has already been gone for many, many years, right? Nikki tells Laura the truth about Shelly. And when she did, Laura convinced her to tell the authorities, and she did that too. But the police were kind of like, this kind of sounds so crazy, so far-fetched, and they didn't really do anything about it. They didn't know she was telling the truth. So when Shelly had no more use for this deteriorating old man, she let live on her floor. By the way, he didn't even sleep in a bed. He couldn't take a shower. He couldn't use the bathroom. He couldn't, all the same shit. Shelly picked up the paychecks that Ron was helping, with Mac and all that kind of stuff. She just really used him up. And on, like I said, Mac dies on February 9th, 2002. And on March 19th of 2002, a deputy finally reaches out to Laura after Nikki had gone to the police. They finally reach out to Laura, and she says, finally, well, let me tell you, I bet she killed Mac. Probably the dog too. And this is what's happening. So they go out over to Laura's house, and they see Ron. And
they go to Laura's house?
They go to Shelly's house, and they see Ron, and Ron's like, oh shit, they're going to think I killed Mac, because that's what Shelly's been telling him. So he makes a run for it. And there's just, it is he's in his underwear in the front yard, and they're just like, why is there just a naked man? Right? Like, what's happening? Like, it doesn't, none of it makes sense. And so anyway. So, just like Kathy a decade before him, Shelly made Ron disappear. She told...
So wait, they show up, they see this man, and they just let it go.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, he's, she kind of spins this tale. I'm telling you, this story is so convoluted, and it's so big, and please read the book. I know I'm like, this is the longest episode ever.
No, it's fine. It's just... It's not the length of the time. It's just crazy that these people keep believing her, and that so many people just let all of these weird red flags go, like these poor children and this man standing in the front lawn. Like, they just let it go, like it's not a big deal.
So Shelly makes Ron disappear. She told Tori that he moved to Tacoma, that he met a man and moved to Tacoma. She told Tori, if you ever say a word about Ron, I'm going to, disown you. And like, that was a real threat. Shelly hid Ron in the outside freezer to wait until Dave came home for the weekend. And Dave, ever the loyal husband, took care of Ron by burying him in the backyard this time because, burn ban. So couldn't have a burn pit. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Sammy had a surprise for Tori. So Sammy was sort of the middle child, was now having conversations with Nikki, had a relationship with Nikki, and had a relationship with Tori, which Nikki did not have. And so surprises, because now Ron needs to be dispersed, taken care of. This is when Shelly's like, you know what, you go up to Seattle and you hang out with your big sister, Sammy. So Sammy uses this opportunity.
That's very trusting of someone like Shelley, in my mind.
Well, Sammy's the golden child. Yeah. So she doesn't think that Sammy's in touch with Nikki at all. Because she thinks that she's convinced the two other daughters not to talk to her. Gotcha. So Sammy says, you're going to talk to your sister, Nikki. And all of a sudden, all the light bulbs start going off. And they're like, Sammy had no idea, because she'd always ask Tori, is anything happening? And, Tori didn't really know how to answer that. Like, that's fine. Like, she didn't really get it. Because every time she would abuse, like the pubic hair thing, or the let me check your progress thing, all of those little things, she would say, your sisters let me do it. Your sisters let me do it. And so she was like, oh, okay, this is normal. And then when Nikki was like, okay, has she ever made you get naked in front of her? Yes. Has she ever done this? Yes. Has she ever done that? Yes. And it started to occur to Tori at that moment, oh my God. And it scared Nikki and it scared Sammy, because they didn't know. They thought she was saved. But when they started to ask questions about Ron, when they started to find things out like that, they were like, Tori, can you make it through high school? You have 3 more years. Can you make it through high school? And she's like, fuck no. Get me out of here. Like, she's like,
yeah, I mean, because she's the last one standing now.
She is the last one standing. And she's like, fuck no, I want out of this. This is awful. And so Sammy and Nikki have to sort of like gather all of their strength and their might and their will to go, and they go back to the police, and they do it together. Now that they're together, they're telling the same story they told the police department before. They told the same thing. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I need to take a drink. So they go to the authorities and they're like, they're coming for you. Just hang tight. Well, it doesn't happen like immediately. It's not like within an hour, so she's just like, I can't hold it in. Like, she's trying not to give it away, but she's like, she's ready to go. So the authorities show up to take her out of the house. No one's arrested yet. They're taking her out. She's
they're taking Tori out.
Yes, they're taking Tori out. By the way, check the freezer. She's trying to like give them hints, like, you might want to look for the camping gear that was whatever. So she's trying to give them, as she's walking out, as many clues to what was happening as she possibly could. So they were begging for the police to give Tori back. Shelly sends Dave to the police department. Dave, bring home Tori. So they're like, sure. Okay. We'll help you get Tori, but you have to answer some questions first. And so he's like, okay. And so without a lot of fanfare, he starts talking and he starts admitting. And he caved. He went to the police station, and all of a sudden he's like, so yeah, I burned the bodies, and this is what I did with them. Yes.
Anything to get away from Shelley on.
So he told enough information to the officers to land him in jail, but didn't do the what is it called, where he didn't give a spousal immunity. Oh. He didn't break that part. But he took them to the house and he says, oh, by the way, this is where I shot Shane in the shed. And this is where I burned the bodies. And this is where I buried Ron. So he's saying all of these things. He's showing them. They dug Ron up. In February of, and this is where they found the photos of how much Kathy had lost, and she was naked on the floor doing chores. obviously not healthy.
Yeah.
In February of 2004, Dave Knotek was sentenced to a little under 15 years in prison for his role in the crimes, and he was given some leniency for sort of handing over that information, being willing to work with the authorities and things like that. He was also a victim of the abuse. He was unable even now to really function as a regular human. He didn't sleep. He was very much that in that manipulated person, and didn't really know fact from what he was trying to tell himself.
Yeah.
Was the situation, and so I think that was sort of that kind. There was a lot of tear. He looked remorseful. He looked sad about it. I think that probably is true for him, but I think that he's probably having to tell himself that his wife wasn't as much of a monster too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's probably hard. That's probably hard to swallow. To think about that somebody would do that to your child and you were okay with it,
Yeah.
Okay, so he was released in 2016 and lives on the Washington coast, and he has a very manual labor kind of job. He's much too old to be doing that kind of stuff, but there he is. So Shelly ended up taking the Alford plea, which is, if you remember the staircase, that's what that guy took, the Alford plea. There's enough evidence to convict me, so I'm not going to plead guilty, but I'm going to take the Alford plea. So I'm going to be sent to jail. So I'm not officially admitting guilt,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to go through with the trial because I'll get convicted. So she ended up getting like 25 years or so. She was supposed to get out this June, but she didn't have a place to go, and that was one of the terms of her release. Because who would fucking want her?
Right.
And so she wasn't released.
I'm almost surprised she hadn't manipulated a pen pal of some sort, like to get her to.
She wasn't cute no mo.
No.
She was not cute no mo. I think she was also taking those pills because she was kind of fucking crazy. So she still refuses to take any responsibility for what happened. She actually blames Nikki and Shane for Kathy's death. She blames everyone but herself. May she forever rot in hell. I think the next time she's up is, next year, but they're whatever. As for the sisters, they are all fucking flourishing.
That's so
Thank
awesome.
God. So their mother, although just this much closer to being out of prison, could not break the sisterhood that bonded them. And I wrote this today. So I was like writing this part, and I felt sort of like poetic about it, but this is what I wrote. Nikki's living in $1 million home in the Seattle suburbs with her husband and children. Sammy's a teacher and living in her hometown where all of that shit happened. But she's still funny. And she also has a home full of children. And Tori is living in Oregon doing social media for a really large company in the hospitality industry.
Good for them.
All three are incredibly successful. All three are still close. And all three fight to keep their mom behind bars. And that's it.
Oh my gosh.
So read those goddamn answers because we need a laugh.
Oh my. It's so rare that you hear that the children in that kind of abuse turn out. I mean, without a lot of.
Nikki is doing so great. And so they were the ones that said, "Hey Greg, can you do this story?" And so he did this story for them, and in hopes, I think, of making sure she stays behind bars.
Okay, I'm gonna read the answers. Did you post it on your Facebook as well, or just?
I think I did. Let me pull it up.
I'm gonna read the answers and then we'll play the Sarah.
Okay. Sorry it was so long, guys.
No, as everyone says, quit apologizing.
I know.
The other Ashley says, "I am Ashley. Which of the old church? Fear me because I can't remember." Chuck says, "I am Chuck. Which of 1,000 thieves? fear me because I know what you are talking about.
Oh.
Samara, I am Samara, witch of the left. Fear me because I have a lot to say.
Get it, girl.
Jennifer says, I am Jennifer, witch of the sun. Fear me because I have no fever. Sarah says, I am Sarah, witch of the church in the Lord. Fear me because I have to be so happy for him. That's kind of boring and creepy at the same time. Nikki says, I am Nikki, witch of my family. Fear me because you don't want me. Laura says, I am Laura, witch of course. Fear me because you don't have a lot of time. Oh, that's creepy. Kathy, I am Kathy, witch of the most important things. Fear me because I was so excited. Lisa says, I am Lisa, witch of the fact. Fear me because you have to. And then Amy says, I am Amy, witch of a friend. Fear me because of her love. But I feel like we're missing some answers. I thought I saw a lot more. Hold on.
No, I think that's...
No, I'm sorry. One moment, because I'm almost positive.
Oh, Trevor?
I don't see that on mine. So
I am Trevor, witch of the fallen one. Oh, witch of the fallen ones. Fear me because I come bringing vengeance. Damn, What are you talking about? Are you texting about like the House of Targaryen or something? I don't know. And you did
I
Amy.
Feel like there was more. No, yeah, I did.
That's
Amy.
it. That was the last one.
Okay.
That was the last one. Yay! Thank you, everybody. Those are so funny. I needed to just like giggle. I went so fast, and I know everybody's gonna be like, you can't put that on the faster setting to get through the episode because I was already speaking so quickly. I swear to God, when I did this, it was like 42.7 minutes, and now it's like an hour and 42 minutes.
Are you ready for Sarah's voicemail?
I am. Let's play it.
I'm so nervous.
Hey y'all, it's Sarah with another Sarah segment. I have to tell you a funny story that Kat already knows about, and I'm sure she might have already told Ashley. But I was publicly recognized last week for my Sarah segment on y'all's podcast, and I about died. So anyways, I had to come on here and brag and make sure that I kept my weekly streak going. So I will talk to y'all again next week. Okay, bye.
That is so awesome that she was recognized.
We were at the women's conference in Galveston.
Of all places to be recognized.
And we were talking to someone who owns a spa at the mall and one of her employees. And she said, your voice sounds really familiar. Are you Sarah from Sarah segment?
Oh my God.
I was like, thank you so much for listening. That's the best story.
Poor Sarah. I'm sure that was a great story for Sarah. At the women's conference.
Where it's about died. You have no, I think my face turned red. Sarah was just like so flattered. And I was like, Jason's like, did Sarah really create her own segment? That's really cute.
I mean,
Sarah is famous for her Sarah segment, and I love it. All right, you guys, thank you guys so much for listening.
Yes, thank you.
You know how to get in touch with us. Like us, review us, follow us, share us, please. And if you have any story ideas, share them, throw them our way. We're happy to do it. Or you end up with a 2-hour show just like today.
Yay.
We will not be recording next week because Jason and I will be in New York for the Emmys. So wish us luck. We're hoping Jason gets a national Emmy this year for his Down to Earth, an astronaut's perspective on Hulu. If you have it, we're so excited. It's a short 30-minute documentary about NASA and astronauts and stuff. Anyway, thanks you guys. We love you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. And until then, wish us luck and be kind to one another. And we'll see you next week or 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.